Welcome to Inside the Set with Set Decor. Inside the Set is a series that focuses on the design and decor of stories that excite us and ignite our imaginations, where we get to discuss the collaborations between production designers and set decorators, and hear firsthand accounts of how those works of art came to be, from their inception to ideas on a page through completion, where we sit in the dark and experience them collectively.
Welcome to Inside the Set with Set Decor. I'm Rae Deslich SDSA. Today I'm pleased to welcome set decorator Rachel Ferrara and production designer Katie Byron to discuss their creative collaboration on the Showtime dark comedy thriller, The Curse. Rachel and Katie, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Hello.
Yes. Wonderful. I love that we're talking about this show, particularly on Set Decor, because one of the themes of the show that I think is the interaction between an artificially created environment and the people who get dropped down in it, you know, with the artifice of reality TV, where you set up a situation and then a person appears in it. You know, the residents' interaction with their passive houses, the locals' interaction with the jean store, things like that. And so I think it's sort of a meta commentary on like set creation in general, that we make this human environment and, you know, and the show really looks and studies the interaction between the people and this artificially created environment. So I think it's saying a lot more about set creation than it appears at first glance. I also feel like that's a Nathan Fielder theme, is like weird situation, normal person. And both of you have worked with him before. Is that what brought you to this project, or was it something else?
I think that for me, it might have been part of the reason why I was brought on is Nathan. I worked with him on a show ages ago called John Benjamin Has a Van, where he played, he was a character in it. So he wasn't directing, but we've been friends in that comedy circle for a while. But I also previously worked with Fruit Tree, which is the production company that did the show. So it was sort of like this meeting of worlds. Probably why I got the job, but
And you two have been working together for quite a long time, it seems.
Yeah, I think Katie, since like 2007 or 8. Yeah, I think Rachel and I kind of started our careers together. Like it was there was a project early on at the start of my career where I was like, I'm not going to do it unless Rachel Ferrara is working on it. So that's been our relationship for the length of my career. It's like is not wanting to do jobs unless she's with me. Yeah, and Katie very easily convinced me to to drop out of film school to work on the job with her. I'm glad I did. Yeah, we're good enablers of each other.
That's wonderful. I noticed that in your previous project, Don't Worry, Darling, there's this sort of sense of domestic tension and unease that was built into the set through the surface decoration, through the furniture, through sort of odd and unsettling shapes. And that also seems to be a theme in The Curse as well, where certain interiors are just a little bit creepy and you can't put a finger on why. Was that a big theme in your decoration?
I think it kind of naturally came out. I don't think there was intentions to, but it definitely did.
Let's talk about what research was required for this project. You shot the show in New Mexico, right? What research did you do about which topics? Historical research or architectural or art or things like that?
Well, I'll speak to this. The first thing that Nathan really wanted me to do was to tackle the research of the passive home, because Nathan is so particular about getting things accurate and right. He has an entire fan base that loves him for that. And I think for him to tell the truth and to make the real world as real as possible is the most important thing. Benny too, but Nathan has like almost like the truth is more important than any aesthetics or any plot or anything. So what the first thing I wanted to do was like start with the branding of Espanola Passive Living and all of the strip mall shops. And he just kept on saying like, but what about the passive home? What about the windows? How do the windows work?
Oh
like,
God, yeah.
yeah. Can you show me how the door works at a passive house? So it was very clear early on that like all he cared about from the start was these passive homes had to be legitimate. That was a big part of the research at first.
Wonderful. What were your references or influences for this project? Were there styles or architects or particular designers or aesthetic styles that you were really inspired by in this project?
Well, New Mexico is like a big reference point for us. Knowing a little bit about Espanola before showing up in Santa Fe, I understood the relationship between architecture and Espanola and Santa Fe. And there's also something with Santa Fe architecture is just in 2021 when we made the show, 2022 was it? Santa Fe architecture was really trendy. You'd see Instagram like content of these like rounded archways and thick piled adobe walls, and everyone was going out to these adobe homes and doing fashion shoots in them and wearing, like wide brimmed hats and girls in sundresses and so there was this idea of like, what could we pull from the trends of the moment, but then also specifically the trends that might come in a year, because we knew the show wanted to be relevant at the time. So a lot of the like the ideas for the references of the way things looks were really, Rachel and I, like it was mostly like a comedy about aesthetics, 2022 aesthetics and the fashion involved with like how people really want to like decorate and show their lives. So everything from the jean store to Espanola Passive Living, the coffee shop, we're all just like kind of, to us, like interior design jokes.
That's amazing. I love that it's a show about jokes about interior design. In the other press that you all have done, you talked a lot about fabricating furniture pieces.
Yeah, that couch we had to have fabricated because it's giant and it's a Floyd furniture ripoff that we had fabricated. Benny was actually obsessed with this couch. He couldn't live without it. I showed him a million different options and I was like, okay, I guess we'll just get it made. And we had that made for this house, and we had two separate cushions made when it went over to the staged Palmer house. And we also had a set of these couches made for the Espanola Passive Living office.
What was shopping in New Mexico and Santa Fe like? Where did you shop for the most part? Did you find it difficult? Did you have to bring in pieces from other places?
We shopped at a lot of like estate sales, and there's a lot of really beautiful antique and vintage stores in Santa Fe. But they were also very expensive. And there weren't really box stores there, which was a good challenge, but that meant having I drove to Colorado a few times just to like go to an IKEA and like Crate and Barrel. I think it was a good challenge. It was like, normally falling back on, Target or something. It kept us from doing those types of things.
A lot of these themes being like trying to play off of what like current design trends were, but then also mixing in, like I think there's a thing that Rachel and I like always inevitably do when we work together, which is wanting to build a world that is very realistic, but has like exists in another plane of existence in a sense. Like like, and I think that's what you're talking about with like the odd, like sort of surreal objects. There's this, yeah, it seems almost like it would be too easy to present the world truly as it is. And so it's like how to sort of, I don't know, there's like something intuitive that comes in where like we see a strange object at like an estate sale or something, and we feel like that's gonna work with the expected trendy item. We'll just end up bringing odd things in and working them in to kind of create this sort of textile of looks.
Obviously, artwork plays a big role in the show, both in terms of like a plot point when we're talking about Kara's artwork, but there's also just a lot of pottery pieces and weaving and a lot of artwork that looks very New Mexican. Was that all local artwork that you sourced, or did you source it from other places?
Yeah, all New Mexico. We had a consultant, Ashley Browning, on, and that was actually her and her family's pottery for the most part, and some of the tapestries and everything. They let us so generously let us rent them from them, and they were like precious family pieces that we'd had for like 4 months. Yeah, they were wonderful. We filmed at the Buffalo Thunder Casino, and we had a lot of Pewaukee art that they allowed us to use in the homes, and then also in the casino. There's a lot of their art featured. And for Kara's artwork, we had Frank Buffalo Hyde was our consultant on it, who has some similarities to Kara, and he kind of was there to guide us through her exhibit, which was really lovely. Yeah, and then a lot of other artists, I just reached out locally, like through Instagram, just started reaching out to people. And for the most part, everyone was so kind and generous. Like I showed up at this lady, Rebecca Crowell. I just showed up. I messaged her like the night before. She got back to me. And like that afternoon, I showed up in my minivan to her studio, and she just trusted me and let me like load 20 pieces into the van and drive them to set, which was used a lot in the staged house and Whitney and Asher's house.
Yeah, a lot of the artwork, even if it's not, traditional style, it feels very New Mexican, even the modern artwork.
Yeah, in the modern artwork, that was all, local. And we rented from a few of the local art galleries there. The Owens Contemporary Art Gallery we used a lot of in Vivi's mansion, and the Zane Bennett Gallery. I purchased a lot of pieces for Whitney and Asher's home from there. And then they actually let us rent some pieces too for Vivi's mansion.
And it's so nice to see things on screen that we've never seen on screen before.
No, I at first was so scared and intimidated to talk to real artists, because in LA, it's just so easy to fall back and be like, HSG, or, so it was a nice challenge that I hope to use in the future here to actually like reach out to artists directly.
And that's so much more footwork than, like you say, just going to a cleared out rental house.
Mm-hmm.
You ended up, spreading the TV money around to people who don't normally get it, which is a great thing to do.
Mm-hmm. I know. Yeah. They were like, it was so funny because I'd reach out to people and they'd be like, for a TV show? Well, okay. And they were like so into it and generous there. Yeah. And Katie always pushes that as well on jobs. Thank you, Katie, for the challenge.
I was really impressed by how much this set looks like your sketches and your mood board. It looks like it made it to the screen pretty much unchanged, which is wild. Did you just receive no notes on it or what?
We didn't really have a lot of notes for this one, maybe because of the time crunch, but also I feel like it's like, it really was a rollout of exactly what we were talking about. Like there's no like.
Yeah, for the most part at the strip mall, at least.
This strip mall is like, I mean, the only strip mall that existed in Espanola that would work for us, that had the amount of empty storefronts. Benny, when we first started, was like, there's no way we can turn these shops into what the vision is. And one of my first sort of goals with the job was to do a Photoshop rendering of what the strip mall could be. to prove to Benny that I think we could pull it off. And we did. And I think that like one of the things about like these pop-up spaces, these like, composite board, wall covered spaces, you can kind of build them anywhere. So we went with this design because we were sort of given this very rudimentary box to deal with.
The funniest part about this strip mall is where the Whitney's office was actually, Katie, were they making beef jerky there?
Yeah, they're making beef jerky. Yeah.
There was this giant like dehydrator kind of in the center of the room that we had to get out of there. Yeah, and these were just completely, empty spaces. Those walls were all like lime green, I want to say, when we walked in. So I could see how Benny had a hard time imagining.
Did it smell like beef jerky as well?
It smelled horrible.
Yeah, the Espanola Passive Living like even stumped me a bit when I walked in on the Scout, because I was like, we can do Barrier Coffee, we can do the jeans store, like, and then I walked into this space and I was like, we can do it here. I kept on saying to Nathan, I was like, give me 2 days, because I feel like I have to wrap my head around it.
All the artwork in this space were all photos of murals throughout the town, and we actually reached out to a local photographer, Bob Eckert, and these were all his photos for the most part. Also, we kind of were still rolling off of COVID, so things that were supposed to arrive, of course, didn't come in time, and we ended up having to get those desks made. The couches in here were also made by this guy, Mike Maloney, who has a prop house called Freeze Frame in Albuquerque, and he was just an angel and a lifesaver. I would literally be like, hi, we have 3 days. Can you make this desk real quick? And he'd be like, oh, yeah, I could do it. Okay. This is also where we used a lot of the Ashley Browning's family's pottery. And then we tried to pepper in just like eco-friendly appliances and things we thought Whitney would think aesthetically look like she was kind of doing the right thing.
Yeah, I can totally see that. How, you have like, a water purifier on the counter and all of these appliances that are very, up to date and energy efficient. And they're also very beautiful aesthetically.
Yeah. And then, a lot, I was like that big work table we found on Craigslist. Oh, and then we used some of Frank Buffalo Hyde's artwork in this space as well.
I love the miniature pottery on the back of Whitney's monitor.
I know, yeah, that's again the Browning family's personal collection. There's a little kitty cat that's very cute on her desk.
Yeah, Whitney's just got to cram some native pottery in every single place in her life.
Yeah, Katie always lets me go nuts with lamps as well. I see a lot just in this little frame.
There are a lot of really good shelf lamps in these two sets. This one in the jeans store, it has so many good little niche lamps.
Yeah, that was also an effort. Like, we can't afford expensive jeans. How do we
take up a lot of space? Yeah. But that's fine because it's so appropriate for the space. All these stores you go in, they'll have like 10 things for sale in one enormous store. Mm-hmm. That was a very clever set dressing strategy. You have, these whole shelves and it's like vase, plants, lamp, one pair of jeans.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really great greenery in this set as well. And I know you two have spoken in the past about your hatred of tiny succulents.
Yes, this was actually a challenge because it's so hot there. And we would film there for a day and not be back for weeks. And it was always just like me checking in with our lead man, like, has anyone been checking on the plants today? Like, we only lost a few in the battle.
I know you two also spoke about having to try to stay ahead of the trends because you knew that this would be released, a year and a half or 2 years after you were making it. So you were trying to anticipate like what the home decor trends would be in a year or two.
I think we just kind of tried to stay neutral almost with it. And I think it worked.
Yeah, it's definitely Santa Fe style, but it's not, it doesn't feel dated. The Whitney's parents' house feels dated, but I think it's supposed to because, they're an older couple and it's very cluttered and very kitschy.
I think Katie found that one. But that was almost as is. We tried as much to get all the artwork cleared that was already there. And I think we just brought in more lamps.
So it was just a really, really great location find.
Yeah. And a challenge of that is when we would find a really great location, Benny and Nathan were both like, well, we must use everything here. And so it was a battle of, okay, let's find the same thing but different that we can get cleared. And the goal was for them not to notice, which yeah, you just cross your fingers, just like, please don't let them notice, please don't let them notice. And most of the time they didn't, which was lovely.
Part of the whole experience of making the curse was getting to Espanola and like finding out what Espanola is and this relationship to Santa Fe, and then the story is like coming out of that. So just like as we're moving through designing the world, there are constantly new ideas that come from the experience of just being there. So it was a lot of, you know, just light bulb moments between the two of them, which like, you know, Rachel and our prop master would have to sort of like adapt to. And I think that was probably the most challenging aspect of the job, but also like what was kind of most exciting for us, because
Yeah.
we really like telling the truth and we like the story. I mean, I think there's something about like being in the art department where you're like, oh man, I wish we mattered more. And like, luckily we work with people that really care about what we do. And so, yeah, working with Benny and Nathan was ultimately like, you know, really good to know that the art department really mattered.
Were you inspired a lot by Espanola the way that they were? Did you, you know, go out and see something in real life and be like, oh, I really love how this liquor store has this, you know, particular like design or dressing quirk to it, and then work it into the sets?
Yeah, I think that I think that we all kind of spoke the same language in that capacity. Like, I think that I think that's something that Rachel and I both have in common is we really don't want to control the look of whatever it is we're making. And the design comes from this like adventure of like finding it. So, and yeah, like we're always interested in that, like the happy accidents that happen in nature in real life spaces. And I think the challenge when working with directors that really love realism or really love shooting things as is when they can't shoot the thing as is and we have to create it, we have to sort of like come in with a lot of that absurdity, you know, like in terms of what a real space and real naturalistic space would look like. And I think a lot of that, like we have to sort of like come in with references or photos we've taken around town to say like, we saw this, can we do this? And, you know, so it's kind of like, I think that the investigative work that we did in Espanola did weave its way into design, but very subtly, you know.
That's great. Let's talk about the passive houses and the design and decor of mostly the interior. The interior is so Santa Fe. I think it's what people think of when they think about, you know, like classic New Mexico design. But it's also very modern and very design forward and very cool. We've talked about, you know, things like the Floyd sofas. But there's also little design details in them, you know, like the chimney and the built-in bookshelves and the cement kitchen islands and things like that I think are really interesting because they sort of make people put the furniture where the designer wants them. What was your direction in designing the passive homes? Was it more of a straightforward, you know, kind of Santa Fe look?
At first, we were really open to what they could be. I mean, at first we were like, does it break from the aesthetic of Santa Fe? Does it embrace Santa Fe architecture? And we weren't sure. And after scouting many interior spaces, we found one interior where this one that you're looking at right now, which is a location that's been like heavily modified with builds. But once we found this location, we were trying to wrap our head around like what could make it work. We thought, well, what if we did embrace the Adobe style of the interior?
Oh, wow. So this was a location then.
This was a location. So this room was location, the kitchen was location, the bedroom was a set build, and the hallway was a set build, bathroom was a set build. And then the foyer was also a set build. So it was like we used mostly this space. We unfortunately couldn't afford to build the entire space, so we wanted to find a location where we could do a lot of retrofitting to it to make it work for us.
So did you build two versions of the bedroom then? The right side up one and the upside down one?
Oh yeah.
Do you want to talk about the challenges of replicating the bedroom in two different versions?
Well, we needed two of everything. So that like eliminated, cool vintage, unique finds because you needed two. And I would literally just go on like Crate and Barrel and CB2 and be like, what do you have in stock that can get here in 3 days kind of? And then for the things that couldn't, there was like a will call I could go to, but it was in Colorado. And yeah, that was
How many times did you drive to Colorado on this show?
Twice. And through a friend of mine who lived in Colorado previously. He's actually an on-set dresser, Alex Gable. I don't know if you know of him, but he is from Colorado. And I was like, do you know any freaks that would that might meet me halfway, or would just go pick up this dresser and I could go get it from him later tonight before they close? And ended up like a friend of a friend ended up driving some furniture out to us one time. But I actually one night just drove there and kind of secretly, because people would be like, what the hell are you doing? But I'm like, we need the stuff. It's got to look good. But I just drove there after work on a Friday and was like, oh, I'll just stop whenever at a hotel when I get tired. And I ended up trying to stop at like 2 to 3 different hotels and there were no vacancies. And I slept in the minivan, but luckily I had a furniture pad with me.
Oh no, that's so sad.
But I mean, I know it's insane. I didn't have to do it, but I was like, we need these dressers. We need these coffee tables. We discovered that pleated lampshade when hung upside down didn't work. That was fun. We also discovered those lamps. They were glass. And my lead man was like, I can't hang glass upside down, Rachel. And I'm like, are you sure? And so again, I took it to Mike Maloney and I was like, can you make these plastic? And he figured it out.
Wow.
Yeah.
You still managed to find some really, really beautiful, if not antique, then at least rustic feeling choices, like the milking stools, things that you look at and you would believe that might be one of a kind. But of course, you bought at least 2.
We had that charcoal piece, a local made that. Luckily, we thought of, I was like, oh, let's just photograph it and have it printed on canvas again and paint over it. But there were just a lot of things. If Katie was like, let's save it for the bedroom. And I'd be like, okay, no problem. And then be like, we need to.
So you basically made a stunt version of that painting.
Yes, we did for that. And then there's another piece that's above the dresser that this other artist, Anna Volmer, she gave us permission. I was like, I think I might want to use this. Is it okay if I photograph it and make duplicates of it? And she was like, no problem. I just need them back or they need to be destroyed. But yeah, that was something I learned you could do. And then the other pieces of artwork, this one in the background is by Rebecca Coons, but she just had prints for sale. So I just bought duplicates of that. So that was easy, but the paintings were a challenge.
Yeah, that's very clever though. It's one thing to design like a beautiful home with a design aesthetic and then another to have to create a breakable version of it.
And then, oh God, I remember I was like, you're not really going to see in the bathroom, right? Just a sliver. And they're like, oh no.
What did you base your choice to build versus dress on location on mostly? Was it because of the availability of locations or the availability of stage space?
Well, we had a really low budget show, so we were limited in what we could build, and then also that restriction of the stages. We just didn't have stage space in Santa Fe at the time, or in Albuquerque. So we really had to use as much in the real world as possible. So the passive homes are all either buildings that we just dropped exterior shells on of the passive homes, or there was one that we built in the field. So we built 3 passive homes all together, but 2 of them are just exoskeletons on top of an existing structure. And then one of them is a full build. But yeah.
Wonderful. Let's talk about Barrier Coffee. That's a really beautiful set as well. And it feels so real and so hipster and so Los Angeles, which makes it so, out of place in Espanola. I saw your references and they're very clearly that sort of hipster coffee shop that we're familiar with. Were there any challenges decorating that set?
Yeah, the espresso machine, they're expensive. And we were able to rent one for 4 months. The coffee bags that are on the back wall, we wanted, red color coffee bags, and the only good looking ones that came in time were kind of shiny. And we hand stamped all of them with the Barrier Coffee logo.
Wow. Yeah,
and actually filled them with pinto beans because it was cheaper than coffee. The construction team actually built that table, the big community table. Oh, I just thought of something funny. Those letters, I feel like I did order some online and they came jokingly this small. So again, Kat, the art director, saved me and had them CNC'd somewhere.
The fixtures that you chose for the coffee bar, they're perfect because they're so they're functional, right? It's the right espresso machine and the right grinders, but they're so beautiful and they have a little bit of design to them and they're so high end. Clearly, you really know your espresso, equipment and show something that's aesthetically beautiful as well.
Oh, thank you. I can't take all the credit for that. I also had an amazing local buyer, Rachel Manera, and she actually was just such an important part. She actually brought up Frank Buffalo Hyde kind of being a reference for Kara and to bring him on. She lives there and has a good connection, and actually I feel found this used espresso machine. We had other buyers on as well, but she kind of led those first, the permanent sets, I want to say. So grateful for her.
That's great. How did SDSA business members support you and on which sets?
We use the American screen blinds in all of the houses and the bedrooms. Alpha Medical came through because we had an OR room we needed in a hospital set, and we ended up getting a truckload shipped of medical equipment because they do have some here, but it's rather dated. So we kind of use that as the local stuff as kind of background stuff in the hospital, and then Alpha Medical saved the day for the main OR room.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me today. It was so interesting to talk about the curse and your inspiration behind the show. Rachel Ferrara and production designer Katie Byron, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Inside the Set with Set Decor. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our website, setdecor.com.